All right. So you know how sometimes like you see a story and you're just like, whoa, okay, what is actually going on here?
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're doing today. We are going to be diving into a dispute that's been highlighted by a YouTuber, very dark black man.
Okay.
And it involves the Metropolitan School of Business and Management, UK.
Okay.
MSBM.
Got it.
And the NATO Scholarship Foundation.
Right.
So kind of like a wild situation.
Got it.
And the YouTuber Very Dark Black Man has kind of given us like this peek into this like pretty serious disagreement. And we have access to excerpts from the transcript of his video.
Okay.
Where he's talking about potential legal action. And he even shares a statement directly from MSBM.
Wow. Okay, so we've got some juicy stuff to get into.
Yeah, so like our mission for this deep dive is pretty simple.
Okay.
We want to unpack the allegations and the counter allegations surrounding the funds that MSBM provided to the NATO Scholarship Foundation for their charitable work. We're going to look at this as impartially as possible, sticking to what is actually presented in our source material.
Absolutely, and just kind of guide everyone through what we're seeing here.
Exactly, yeah.
So I guess starting with MSBM's perspective, the statement comes from Fatma Shafak, who is the executive director of operations for MSBM.
Okay.
And they don't really hold back in their statement.
Oh, really?
They're claiming like severe mismanagement, dishonesty, and contractual breaches by the NATO Scholarship Foundation.
Wow.
Yeah, big accusations right off the bat.
Those are huge accusations.
Absolutely. And they also mentioned that they've started legal action. Okay. And that NATO and his manager, Sarah, have actually been summoned multiple times by the Nigerian police.
Wow. Okay. So right away, you can see the gravity of the situation here.
It's absolutely. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's also interesting to note that MSBM really highlights their past successes in supporting education.
Okay.
So they mentioned collaborations with organizations like Lead for Good Africa and Nigeria, where they say they successfully raised over 40,000 pounds and provided scholarships to more than 20 students.
Okay.
So this kind of gives you the sense that this partnership with the NATO Scholarship Foundation wasn't their first time doing this kind of work.
Right.
They kind of have some experience in this area.
They've been around the block.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get into some of the financial details.
Yeah.
Because it seems like that is really...
at the heart of it.
Yeah, the heart of this whole thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So MSBM states they provided a total of 85 million naira to the NATO Scholarship Foundation.
Right.
And this came after an initial budget of 60 million naira was like agreed upon.
Okay.
And the payment structure was 60 million naira up front with the remaining 25 million.
Right.
Contingent on MSBM seeing like demonstrable progress.
So like almost like a milestone payment?
Yeah, like a phased project. So initial investment and then...
you hit certain points, then you get the rest.
Exact. So it's at this point looking at how that initial 60 million naira was reportedly spent.
Okay.
That MSBM raises some pretty big concerns.
Okay.
They provide a very detailed breakdown of alleged expenditures where they claim to have no evidence in receipt or no accountability in receipt.
Oh, wow.
And that lack of documentation for some pretty substantial sums
Yeah.
is a huge element of their allegation.
Okay, so like what are we talking about here?
Yeah, so let's actually walk through some of these specifics because it really kind of paints a picture.
Yeah.
So they list 7 million naira for 20 LED billboards.
Okay.
5 million naira for 10 influencers.
Okay.
And a pretty striking 10.8 million naira for invitation boxes and cards for just 100 people.
Whoa.
And for all of this, MSBM is saying, like, we have no proof that this money was spent the way that it was supposed to be.
Yeah, that invitation one really sticks out to me. Like, what were in these boxes?
Right, like how much?
Yeah, what was the breakdown?
Exactly.
For the cost there?
Yeah.
So wild.
Yeah, and it goes on.
Okay.
14.98 million naira for venue and setup.
Okay.
5 million naira for a Timidakalo performance.
Okay.
7.95 million naira for entertainment. 7.9 million naira for food and drinks.
Wow.
Again, MSBM stating no accountability and receipt for these pretty huge amounts.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. So like what this is suggesting to you is maybe like a breakdown in the financial tracking and reporting.
Right.
For you would expect.
You would hope for.
in a partnership involving this much money.
Yeah, for sure.
So there are a few more line items.
Okay.
3.5 million naira for digital marketing.
Okay.
2.5 million naira for offline event promotions.
Got it.
Where they explicitly say no proof of execution.
Okay.
And then interestingly, there are a couple of areas where MSBM did receive some evidence.
Okay.
2 million naira for video production.
Yeah.
And 1.56 million naira for press and media engagement. So it's not a complete absence of documentation.
Right.
But it seems very selective. Like, where is the rest of it?
Yeah, exactly. And then we have 14 million naira for event media coverage.
Okay.
Which Nedu's team apparently claimed was like covered by a sponsorship from HIP TV.
Okay.
And then finally 5.3 million naira
okay.
for an event management company.
Okay.
Again, MSBM claiming no accountability and receipt.
Right.
So this kind of begs the question.
Yeah.
If a sponsorship covered this big cost,
yeah,
where is the documentation of like a sponsorship agreement?
Exactly.
He's suspicious.
Yeah, and the timeline here is also really important.
Okay.
MSBM states that almost 3 months after the NATO Scholarship Foundation received that initial 60 million naira, they were unable to provide adequate evidence of how it had been spent.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like no billboards, no like detailed reports on influencer engagement, just like a lack of the kind of documentation that you would expect.
Right, for that amount of money.
Yeah.
You would think.
For sure.
But yet, despite this lack of demonstrable expenditure, MSBM says that NATO's team was still like really pushing for payment of the remaining 25 million naira.
Oh, wow.
Which is crazy. And obviously, MSBM refused to release the funds without seeing where that initial sum had gone.
Right.
And that's when, apparently, according to MSBM, NATO's team kind of accused them of hanging them dry.
Oh, wow.
Which MSBM strongly disputes.
No. Okay.
They're like, no, we're just asking for evidence of expenditure.
Yeah.
Before releasing more money.
Like, that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Like, show me the receipts.
Show me where it went.
Yeah.
And we'll talk.
Exactly.
So this really highlights how important it is to have clear communication and agreed upon reporting right from the beginning.
Like from day one.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it.
That's how we're going to track everything.
Yeah.
Super important.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to another point of disagreement, which is about the event itself.
Okay.
So MSBM says that they initially proposed a ticketed event.
Okay.
And they argued that this like aligns with global best practices where ticket sales can cover the event costs and then like all the sponsorship and donations can go directly to the cause, which in this case is scholarships.
Right.
But NATO, according to MSBM, insisted on a free event.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the reasoning they gave was that like charity events in Nigeria typically don't charge ticket fees.
Okay.
Now, whether that's true or not, we don't really know from this source.
Yeah.
But MSBM emphasizes that this decision really changed things financially.
Okay.
Because it put all of the risk on them.
Right.
And removed any potential to like make money through ticket sales.
Right.
That could have gone to the scholarship fund.
Directly to the scholarships.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
And then the transparency issues seem to go beyond just the event expenditures.
Okay.
So MSBM alleges that the bank account they agreed upon for fundraising wasn't actually used at the event.
Oh, wow.
They say that NATO opened a separate bank account.
No, wow.
Without their knowledge or consent.
So like a secret account.
Yeah, basically.
Oh.
Which they say was a violation of their transparency agreements.
Yeah.
And what's even crazier is that they say this separate account was the one displayed on NATO's like promotional materials.
Oh, wow.
So you can see how that would raise some eyebrows.
Huge red flag.
Yeah, like where is this money going?
Right.
And to date, MSBM says that there's been no like clear accounting of the total amount of money raised.
For the scholarships through this other account.
Exactly. So shady, right? And this lack of clarity on the fundraising really kind of just adds to that breakdown in transparency.
For sure.
That MSBM is alleging.
It just doesn't look good.
It does not look good. And then they also make a point about branding.
Okay.
They say that their branding at the event was deliberately downplayed or even like suppressed.
Oh, wow.
And that other sponsors who weren't even the primary funders were given way more visibility.
Wow. That's so strange.
Yeah, it's a bit odd.
So, like, what is the point of being the primary funder if you're not even acknowledged?
Yeah, like, what are you getting out of it?
Right.
It makes you wonder if there was, like, a misunderstanding about the agreement.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get down to what MSBM is asking for.
Okay.
And what they plan to do about this.
Yeah.
So their main demand is full accountability.
Okay.
They want proof of how that initial 60 million Nicara was spent.
Makes sense.
Yeah, like bank transfer records, vendor invoices, all that stuff.
Ugh.
They also want a clear accounting of the funds raised through that separate account. And their intentions seem pretty serious. They say that they are committed to pursuing financial transparency and accountability.
Good for them.
Yeah. And they plan to move forward with legal action against the NATO Scholarship Foundation for misappropriation of funds and a breach of contract.
Whoa.
And they really want to bring these alleged fraudulent practices to light to protect the integrity of charitable giving.
Absolutely.
And they even include a warning to other potential donors and charities.
Oh, wow.
To be cautious when working with organizations that don't demonstrate proper financial accountability.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so this is a huge reminder for everyone.
Yeah.
Do your due diligence.
Huge.
Yeah.
Especially in this sector.
Yeah.
It's so important.
All right, so now let's shift our focus to the perspective of very dark black man.
Okay.
As it is presented in this transcript.
Yeah.
So he acknowledges being aware of potential legal action against him for covering this.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that he states that the individuals from MSBM
who are alleging fraud against NATO haven't actually contacted him directly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And he also mentions that since NATO hasn't issued a public statement, he feels it's important to present MSBM's claims to ensure that the truth comes out.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see that he sees himself as playing a role in uncovering the truth for the benefit of the whole community.
Right.
And his motivation seems to be twofold.
Okay.
He wants to protect scholarship opportunities for Nigerian students, and he's concerned about preventing people from giving Nigeria a negative image.
It makes sense.
Through fraudulent activities.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
So what I find interesting is how very dark black man himself is framing this whole thing.
Okay.
He observes that MSBM's statement really suggests that they believe they were the ones defrauded.
Right.
But he is careful to say that he is not the judge.
Of course.
In this situation.
Yeah.
And he also mentions that a petition has been filed.
And that NATO will probably be invited by the authorities to give his side of the story.
Interesting.
So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, like this is clearly not over.
No.
Yeah. And he also makes it very clear that he does not like fraudsters.
Good for him.
And people who take advantage of others.
Absolutely.
So it seems like he's really invested in seeing this resolved fairly and making sure that future scholarship opportunities aren't harmed by this.
For sure.
Yeah. So to summarize, this deep dive has explored the allegations and counterclaims as they are presented in these excerpts from Very Dark Black Man's YouTube transcript, including MSBM's statement.
Gotcha.
But we got to remember this is just one snapshot of like a much more complex and probably ongoing dispute.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it really underscores the importance of having clear, legally sound agreements, doing thorough due diligence.
For sure.
And maintaining transparency in any partnership.
Yeah.
Especially when it involves charitable giving.
Absolutely.
And large sums of money.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
Yeah.
So this whole situation is really making me think.
Yeah.
Like, what does this tell us about the challenges and potential problems with these types of partnerships?
Yeah.
And like, how can organizations and individuals ensure greater transparency and accountability, to protect their investments and the people who are supposed to benefit from their generosity?
It's a really good question.
Yeah, so think about the different perspectives here.
Yeah.
And what other information you might need to form your own opinion about this case.
It's a wild one.
It is wild.
Yeah. So that is our deep dive.
There you have it.
Into this very complex situation. We will, of course, keep you updated.
Absolutely.
As the story develops. And until then, stay vigilant out there.
Do your research.
And we'll see you next time.